how are we supposed to grow and develop belief in the Māori community that these agencies and institutions and indeed the government actually have their best interest at heart when all available evidence and action speak in the other direction, demonstrate in the other direction? The visceral lived experience for Tiwi Māori is in the other direction. I know you don't have an answer for this, but I'm putting this to the whole room and everyone who's going to watch it. How do you expect Te Iwi Māori, the principal tiriti partner in this country? I just spoke to our last bill, and that departmental report says, they recognise that the treaty forms the foundation of the legitimacy of government in the country. And all of these things, it's just an ongoing story. It's the never-ending story of why things can't improve for Tiwi Māori. And I'm looking for the circumvent. How do we circumvent this so that it doesn't just continue on and on and on? And every time I speak to an official, a CEO, or whatever, they say, well, I can't do it by myself. I can't do it by myself. How, I'm just asking for your view, in any one of you, your view. How do we circumvent this so that Tiwi Māori, the principal treaty partner in this country, might get a little reprieve in one generation in the future?
Joe, I wonder if I might get our Tino Rangatiratanga leader to comment on that.
Oh, that's kia ora Matu. I'd love to hear from her, but I would also love to hear from you, the leader of the organisation.
Given you had commented, apologies committee member, on other CEOs, perhaps I can comment and then pass to Julia. I just want to note firstly, and I want to make this really clear for all committee members, we are independent from the state. So we are not the same as other ministries or other departments that may appear before you. We have quite a difficult role in that we are funded by government, but we are responsible for holding the government to account. So I just want to make clear that our role is to raise concerns with legislation and to ensure that all people's human rights in Aotearoa are upheld. We have continued to do that. I would call that one element, but our progressive work in this space, I think, speaks for itself, that we do want to uphold the treaty partnership, Te Tiriti and Aotearoa, and that is partly why we have embarked on a Te Tiriti-based journey, because we see a core role for us for human rights in Aotearoa is recognising the uniqueness of that partnership. So I will pass to our Tino Rangatiratanga leader. Thank you.
Tēnā koe te mema mō tō pātai. To acknowledge, to add to what Meg has discussed in terms of our independence as a national human rights institution, our deep commitment to going on that pathway as a tiriti-based organisation, looking to the justice system and the over-incarceration and over-representation of Māori, that is decades long. I note from the year I was born, the late Papa Moana Jackson, his work around he whai pāngahau, fast forwarding to, in recent years, the work of the Safe and Effective Justice Advisory Group that was led by the late Chester Barrows. Over numerous reports in that time period have identified rights abuses, the fact that the system does not work for Māori, does not work for New Zealand, has been clearly articulated to the point where today we have the largest incarceration of Indigenous women in the world. That is reflected across the experiences of other colonised countries. That is a deep-rooted part of our systems and our history. And as a national human rights institution, continuing to shine a light on those injustices and on the fact that the system hasn't shifted outcomes in this country, and we know that that's been a commitment of successive governments over time. Our role is to continue to shine a light on that, and I want to acknowledge as well in the Tino Rangatiratanga sphere the number of Māori who have headed over to the United Nations to raise concerns when they have raised concerns before governments of many colours over many decades, and they have not been listened to. That they have gone to the United Nations as a tool, and for us as Te Kāhui Tika Tangata, as a national human rights institution, that we are proudly an independent voice, and that Māori also, we engage with Māori through the work that we do to make sure that we use the tools and the lever of us as a national human rights institution to give light to those concerns and rights abuses that continue to occur, and we will continue to do that. That is our role as long as we are here and beyond the time of us as individuals. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Kia ora, Dr. Rainbow. This is sort of just directly at you, and I've got a bit of a line of questions, just two. But as the commissioner, can you articulate for me the nature of your organisation's relationship with Te Tiriti o Waitangi?
Thank you for the question, Tēnā koe. The primary way in which we have a relationship with the treaty is through being a treaty-based organisation. That's a journey that began in 2015. It's and I describe it as a journey quite deliberately, because it is a journey. And over that period, which is essentially a decade since 2015, a number of steps have been put in place, whether it's capacity within the Commission in terms of Te Ahi Kā, to actually help us to address issues of particular concern to tangata whenua and embodying the tino rangatira tanga side of our relationship, number one. Number two, we've appointed at the beginning of 2024 the joint leadership model, so that we actually are trying to model for New Zealand, for Aotearoa, the kind of organisational structure that might give effect to the treaty at a very, very practical level. And I would say that in my experience to date, if I might make a subjective observation as a new person, that model is working extremely well. It's meant, for example, that we had a physical presence unprecedented for many years at Waitangi this year, and the Race Relations Commissioner, Dr. Darby, and I were privileged to be able to deliver karakia at the morning ceremony, for example. And so I think we are getting very good advice, and it is a consistent part of everything we do that we take into account the tino rangatira tanga side of the tino rangatira tanga kawatanga dynamic, and that's embodied in the structure of the organisation. And also,
if I could, sorry, Dr. Rainbow, if I could just give you this last one to comment on, not to cut you off, but the language of leaders is important. And we hear this all around the place. I'll just note how you introduced earlier on today, and you mentioned disabled, tangata whenua, and rainbow. You know, and that's a common theme across all leadership in the agencies of the government. My challenge would be that tangata whenua are probably in a different category to smaller marginalised peoples in our wider communities. And so the language of leadership and leaders is a very important thing. And so to that point, and with the nature of your job as the commissioner and your relationship to Te Tiriti or Waitangi, as you've just described it, as a growing thing, I take that obviously. But in your view, is Te Tiriti or Waitangi a human rights issue, or is it an issue of higher or other significance?
That's not just something that I need to opine on. It is actually a part of our legislation. The human rights dimensions of the Treaty of Waitangi are a part of our legislation. And I have it here, and I'm sure Julia will be able to point out precisely what section it is. So we take that very seriously, and it's not just a question of whether we want it to be or not. It is a part of our legislation, and we do take it very seriously. And as I say, it's and can I also say I apologise with regard to the issue of the language, and I'll take that into account, and I hear you, and I will certainly not do that again. But we take this very seriously, and as I say, it's part of our legislative responsibility. It's reflected, if you look at the statement of intent that's coming out and the way in which it's infused with Te Tiriti, you will see that we take this very seriously indeed.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Dr. Ray, but just to say, it wasn't a criticism. It was just something that I note is quite prevalent throughout the leadership of the agencies.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.